The African slave of the 21st century are those who cannot unlearn all of the mental enslaving lies that have been indoctrinated into their minds by the white society. This is not some feeble-minded premise, nor is it some silly conspiracy theory. It's the truth that they conceal from us. And it's a fact that has remained consistent throughout history. Throughout history, those empires that were extremely racist and brutally oppressive, fearing eventual acts of massive retribution from those they brutally oppressed, have always prevented such acts of retribution by embedding fraudulent propaganda into the collective minds of the oppressed. More specifically, fraudulent propaganda that prevents the oppressed from engaging in acts of massive retribution against their oppressors. This is a hidden social science that is deemed necessary because while the oppressors, through their weaponry advantage of guns, rifles, and cannons, can invade and enslave we Africans, they, however, cannot win our loyalty or sustain peace with us indefinitely unless our minds are manipulated to think in ways that keeps us loyal and that suppress dissent from rising amongst us. Because whenever people are oppressed for long durations, their collective aggressions towards their oppressors will continue to grow until acts of massive rebellion and retribution against their oppressors becomes inevitable. This is an inherent response within the collective human psyche whenever people are oppressed for long duration. The only way to prevent these pending acts of massive rebellion is by embedding false information into the minds of the oppressed that prevents such acts of retribution. This prevention system is very effective because regardless of how intelligent people are, people's thoughts and behaviors aligns with the information that they receive. Therefore, oppressors have always fed false information into the minds of the oppressed that shapes their beliefs and behaviors in ways that are beneficial to their oppressors. It's a practice the oppressors often deploys against the oppressed. It is a common tactic throughout history, and this nefarious practice was never abandoned. To the detriment of we Black people, this is what has been done to us by white oppressive forces. Generations after generations of Black people have been manipulated to think in ways that protects and serves the interests of the white society through their monopoly over information that we receive. It was deemed necessary given the white society's long history of oppressing and exploiting Black people. To know that it's an absolute fact that the white society controls most of the information that Black people receives, and to doubt that they would exploit this monopoly to garner an outcome among us that benefits themselves is extremely naive. It's in fact absurd not to realize this fact. The white oppressors have fed lots of false information into the collective minds of the Black masses that keeps us thinking and behaving in ways that are beneficial to their white society. The Bible is the most successful propaganda literature used for meeting that objective. The early white Christians' conversion of Africans into their religion had absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with saving the souls of Africans so that we may join them in heaven during the afterlife. This is an irrefutable fact because the early white Christians literally believed that Africans weren't humans. They believed that Africans had no souls, and they also believed that heaven was for whites only. In fact, the early white Christians believed that the thought of an African entering heaven was as ridiculous as a dog doing so. This is an absolute fact. When we logically look at facts as they truly were, we can say with 100% absolute certainty that the early white enslavers and conversion of Africans into their religion had absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with saving the souls of the Africans. There was another self-serving reason why they put their time and energy into converting Africans, the people they otherwise treated so brutally, into their religion. The true self-serving reason was to indoctrinate the belief of a white God into their subconscious minds. Indoctrinating the belief of a white God into the subconscious minds of Black people creates a profound adoration towards whiteness. This adoration towards whiteness is then subconsciously transposed onto white people. This makes Black people more compliant with white dominance over our lives. It in fact made Black people into more loyal slaves for the white enslavers. And it also made Africans easier to be colonized. Usually whenever this topic is mentioned by Black believers of the Bible, they immediately become defensive, and many will insist that the oldest Bible is found in Ethiopia and that Christianity was originally practiced by Black people in Ethiopia. However, that's absolutely untrue. In reality, the Roman Emperor Constantine created the false Christian religion in the year 325 AD. Christianity did not reach Ethiopia until the reign of King Ezana in the year 341. That's 16 years after the white Romans created the false religion. These are facts. Christianity is not the belief system practiced in Africa before the year 325 AD. I will return to this subject later. Also, whenever the validity of the Bible is brought into question, many Black Bible believers will say that people have the right to believe whatever they choose to believe. However, there's a profound exception to that rule when it comes to the oppressed. The oppressed must function based upon what is actually true in order to liberate ourselves. Because if our beliefs are flawed, then all of our liberating remedies and strategies that stems from those flawed beliefs will also be flawed. This is why those of us who know the truth must teach. Even though the white oppressors have brainwashed millions of our people to hate those of us who tells them the truth. We must still tell the truth because the truth must be known, and because it's required in order for us to liberate ourselves. The truth is that the Bible is the most successful false propaganda tool that has been used for mentally enslaving Black people to think in ways that benefits and protects the system of white supremacy. The reason why there's rarely any resolve whenever a Black conscious person tries to teach these noted facts to Black believers of the Bible is because the conscious person presents documented facts, critical thinking, reasoning, and common sense. But the Black Bible believer has been taught to ignore all evidence to the contrary of his religious belief and to stand on blind faith. Yes, this sounds very admirable, but it actually imprisons the mind. This abandonment of their critical thinking skills in exchange for blind faith is why it can be very difficult to teach the truth to Black believers about the fallacies within their religion. Even when presenting them facts, they will ignore it all. This is also why most will argue strongly defending their belief, but rarely, if ever, will they research any evidence presented to them that's to the contrary of what they've been conditioned to believe. Some will even label those of us who try to teach them the truth as being agents of the devil trying to trick them. They have been conditioned to abandon their critical thinking skills and to ignore all evidence to the contrary of their indoctrinated belief. Therefore, their very intelligence has literally been decreased by their religion. To try to teach the truth to people that have been conditioned to renounce the use of reason, facts, and common sense is literally as difficult as trying to feed medicine to the dead. As I've stated earlier, many Black Bible believers insist that the Bible contains the true words of God and that Christianity was originally practiced by Black people in Ethiopia. However, as I stated earlier, in reality, the Roman Emperor Constantine created the false religion in the year 325 AD. Christianity did not become the official religion of Ethiopia until the reign of King Ezana in the year 341. That's 16 years after the Romans created the false religion. Christianity is not the belief system practiced in Africa before the year 325 AD. The Bible was written by the Roman Emperor Constantine and the councils of bishops in the year 325 AD. From May to August 325, those men created the story of the Immaculate Conception, the Trinity, and the story of Jesus being a Messiah, which are the canons of modern Christianity. They are the foundation of Christianity. Therefore, the doctrine before then was not what we call Christianity. And the Romans themselves were an immoral and sexually perverted society that routinely engaged in massive orgies, wife swapping, bestiality, sodomy, incest, pedophilia, and death sports. And they continued these immoral practices even after writing the Bible. These noted facts, combined with the fact that the Bible strongly condones slavery, totally disqualifies the Bible from containing the true words of God. Furthermore, the way it was introduced to us is not the way God would allow his words to be introduced to a people. To insist that the Bible contains the true words of God, in spite of such overwhelming facts to the contrary, is to insult your own intelligence. Christianity was made by men with a political agenda, not to bring people the true words of God. The Romans' creating of the Jesus Messiah myth was actually an ingenious scam. Its ideology that to enter the kingdom of heaven, you had to go through Jesus, gave the church immensely greater power, because it literally means that the church held the one and only key into heaven. That's immense power on earth. That's why they created the scenario of the Jesus. Furthermore, if Christianity was truly of God, why then did the Roman Emperor Constantine, who himself oversaw the writing of the Bible, he refused to convert into a Christian? Even on his deathbed in the year 337, he refused to do so. After he died, his men baptized him and declared him to be a Christian. These facts totally contradicts the doctrine that states that a person has to accept Jesus before dying to enter heaven. Furthermore, all of these facts totally destroys them. In fact, if Christianity was a ship, you can never take it out to the ocean because there's so many holes and it will sink to the bottom. But yet people live their entire lives based upon these false religion, and they get angry at anyone who tries to point it out. Therefore, some people literally go from their cradle to their grave, never knowing the truth. Therefore, their minds were never their own. They live and die being mentally enslaved by the white society. Therefore, they live and die being the white oppressors' fools, while fighting against those of us who try to free their minds. It's time to learn the truth of how the white society feeds disinformation to us. And I said, Christianity is only one aspect of it. There's also media propaganda, where they deploy divide and conquer against us, keep us demoralized, believing there's something wrong with us. They also use the educational system, where they withhold black racially affirming facts to condition us to believe we're inferior to them. There's a war being constantly waged against our minds, and we must wake up to our reality. One love and peace.